All right, welcome to this episode of Trojan Poetry. We've taken a break, but we're back.
We're back, better than ever.
Well, yes, we're back. All right.
I'm putting the pressure on.
Yeah, I've chosen the poem this week. Mike hasn't read it. I thought this one would be appropriate, given the weather we've had here in the middle of the country. This is called Spring is Like a Perhaps Hand by E. Cummings. So here it goes. Spring is like a perhaps hand which comes carefully out of nowhere, arranging a window into which people look, while people stare, arranging and changing, placing carefully there a strange thing and a known thing here, and changing everything carefully. Spring is like a perhaps hand in a window, carefully to and fro moving new and old things, while people stare carefully moving a perhaps fraction of flower here, placing an inch of air there, and without breaking anything. So here in the Midwest, we've had some really crazy weather.
Yeah.
Spring.
Global warming. Anybody?
Spring seems to be nowhere. We get a day of warmth and then 4 days of sleet.
Yeah.
Given our so we're wearing long sleeves in the middle of April, it's crazy.
Right.
So I thought, I don't know if that has anything to do with this, obviously.
No, well, I think it's a great pick.
But
Yeah, we
just the
had
idea.
an ice storm, then there was snow, then
Right.
there was rain, now more ice.
Right. So spring is like a perhaps hand, right? Maybe coming. Maybe that's how I
see
kind
what
of
you did there.
made the connection.
Right,
yeah.
right. It's
So-
like a perhaps hand. That's such a weird phrasing, you know? And I always think whenever I see E. Cummings' poems, like how persnickety he must have been with getting the arrangement just right, with the punctuation and everything.
Right.
I mean,
or lack of.
yeah, right.
Right. So we've got the kind of typical, not typical, but we see the parentheses, right? He likes to put things in parentheses to kind of show either another perspective or to jar you out of normal reading, the form. But I mean, so if you read without the parentheses, spring is like a perhaps hand arranging a window into which people look and changing everything carefully. Okay, well, I mean, that makes sense, right?
You can kind of follow that.
Spring comes in, it's careful in the way it does things, and it's making a window. But then you've got the parentheses, the second set here, while people stare, arranging and chasing, placing carefully there a strange thing and a known thing here.
I noticed there's that pattern of a lot of changing recurs a lot, and a lot of arranging things. Changing everything, and carefully. Everything has to be done carefully. People stare carefully down at the bottom, changing everything carefully. Carefully there, a strange thing. So those three keep popping up over and over. Arranging, changing, and the fact that it's done carefully. So maybe the difference between what people are doing versus what spring itself is doing.
Right. And people are arranging and like people in their houses, they move things and they set things up and it's like clumsy and awkward, right? Like you hate moving furniture and it's bad. But then spring is this very kind of stealthy, quiet, careful thing. Maybe that's the juxtaposition there that's happening.
Well, at the top it says, in the first stanza, changing, placing carefully there, a strange thing and a known thing here. And maybe that's why the change has to be done carefully, because there are known things that we're aware of, and these strange things we need to keep control over.
Okay. And I admitted to Mike before
we
we did
new
this.
and old things down here again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I admitted, Mike, I'm confused by this, right? Like,
I am too.
yeah. And part of our goal here is, right, to show the confusion even adult readers have.
Right.
Right, you shouldn't feel bad if you're confused by a poem the first or second or third time you read it. Like, that's part of what you do with a poem. You digest it and think about it and
reread.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, the difference is that the first part is spring is like a perhaps hand arranging a window, and then in that second long stanza,
it's in the window.
Yeah, it's in a window.
Yeah.
So trying to maybe think about what is the difference. I guess maybe you're thinking from the spring's perspective versus the people's perspective, right? Like when I look out a window, spring is in the window.
Right.
And it's a hand making things, right? Versus spring making a window for us even to look. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I kind of fell apart there.
Yeah, right. No, when we look out the window, we see spring, and spring controls what we see, right? And then in the second half, it's in the window. What's also interesting is that I only noticed the only two concrete nouns really are flower and window
And hand.
and hand. And that's it, right? Those are the only things I can really grasp onto and kind of visualize. Everything else is just these crazy changing, carefully placing, arranging.
Well, but there is the
and
weird,
it's
weirdly almost concrete inch of air. Right? Like
a fraction of flower here. Why would you put a fraction of a flower there, right?
Well, because it's like just
Placing
growing,
an
right?
inch
Like
of
it's a
air.
fraction of a flower because it's just starting to.
Because it's springtime.
break
Aha,
that,
that
right?
makes sense.
But it doesn't break. Right? Spring doesn't break things. It builds things.
Yeah, placing an inch of air there and without breaking. I don't know. It just seems like whoever is these people are doing this arranging are really anal retentive. You know what I mean? Like they just can't. It has to be done this way, fractionally. You know, everything has to be placed. Maybe he's comparing the idea of how controlling people are versus spring, which just comes flying in and does what it does.
But I think spring is careful too. Right, because I think you could read it that spring is carefully moving new and old, right? Spring literally takes old dead things and brings in new things while people stare. It carefully does these things, right? So
I guess both of them are careful in their own way.
right up above,
Yeah.
it looks
Well,
like in
it
the
does
first
say that,
stanza,
yeah.
right? The people are careful,
Spring
maybe.
changes everything carefully. I think I'm just trying to figure out that it seems to be important, that comparison between spring and people ourselves, right?
Well, is it that the people are stare, like the only thing people do is stare, but spring is, because one thing you could read it, way you could read is spring arranges and changes, placing carefully their estranging. Like when you have a garden, you don't always know what's going to pop up, right? Like sometimes something from years ago will pop up and it's like, who planted that, right? But then sometimes it's a known thing, right? Like, oh, I planted daffodils, here they are, but there's this other weird thing all of a sudden.
Where'd that come from? It's hidden
Right,
and appears
and
out
that's
of
spring,
nowhere.
right? Maybe that's the way to read it. Like people only stare, and everything else in the poem is being done by spring. I hadn't thought of that before, but
Yeah, you're right, because they stare in both stanzas.
right. But the lack of punctuation and these
It
strange
makes it hard to tell.
line breaks.
Yeah, who's doing
Right.
the action half the time? And maybe that's the point, is you're not supposed to know.
Well,
Well, I think we kind of
yeah.
made some sense out of it.
Yeah.
I just like that. I mean, with Cummings, it's always just impressions. It's just a little flash of this, a flash of that, and the way he puts it together is so weird and thought-provoking. And you know, whether you can come to a concrete, you know, idea at the end, I don't know if that's as important as just kind of experiencing it.
Right.
All right, well, thanks for watching. Please join the conversation in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter at Trojan Poetry DGN. Also, check out our website at trojanpoetrydgn.blogspot.com.